Hi guys, good afternoon all. Just give it a couple of minutes to get started today and just let people get logged on. So the numbers are flying up as we're starting here at the minute. So another couple of minutes and then we'll get going. Okay, the numbers are still increasing here, so we'll give it another minute or two. Okay, guys, it looks like the numbers have kind of leveled out now, so we'll get started. So again, welcome and great to have you all on the call today. Today with us on the panel, obviously myself, David Lemon and Susanna Bucket, the RSMs. And then we have Andy Murray from Aberdeen up in Scotland, and we have Jonathan Valentine from Manchester who's on the call. So just before we get started, guys, I say again, thank you for coming on board. It's really, really encouraging to see how many people have been logging into these sessions and taking a lot of great information. And more importantly, putting it into practice, because from Tuesday's call, we see a massive increase in moto and econ deals being done yesterday. So these are taking things on board, putting them into practice. And that's what these sessions are all about, guys, being able to pick up wee points and then you put them into your own pitches and being able to close deals. So I say, well done getting on board and putting things into practice, and just keep logging on. So we're going to get things started here. We're going to open up with Andy. Andy's going to give us a little bit of his payment sense journey as such and what's working for him at the minute. So over to you, Andy.
Okay, hi everybody, good afternoon. So I'm up in Aberdeen in Scotland. I have been in sales most of my life. I started as a social worker at the age of 21. I was dealing with alcohol abuse and drug abuse. So I've actually fitted into the Scottish team very nicely. While I was doing my social work, I got involved in a kitchen company, did one sales for them, and made more than that one night than I made in 6 months working social work. So it was a no-brainer for me. So I got involved in sales very quickly. Aberdeen's was a very wealthy city because of the oil that we have up here. We're the oil capital of Europe. And the companies that I was working for in kitchens, you were regularly making £25,000 a month in commission. So it was a very good life. We hit the financial recession a number of years ago, and the business in Aberdeen halved overnight, literally died. It was like, you see these films of tumbleweed going across the car parks. It was literally like that. We were just recovering, and then in Aberdeen, we hit the oil slump, and everybody just left Aberdeen. All the Americans and the Saudis and everybody else just went, and really Aberdeen became a bit of a ghost town. So I started looking around for other work. At the time, I was sitting in the kitchen showroom one day, and a guy from Payment Sense walked in, sat down and tried to pitch me a card machine. And after they left, I thought, well, I could do better than that. And they phoned Payment Sense. And in those days, the RSM for Scotland was Frank. A few of you will remember him. And I went down, met Frank, had an interview, and I think about 3 weeks later, I was doing a course. Sheila, by the way, was the trainer on the course. That tells you how far back we go. So I actually started with Payment Sense on a part-time basis. I was only doing maybe a day, 2 days a week, did my local town, found out I was getting sales fairly quickly. But in those days with Payment Sense, you didn't know who anyone was. Frank kept everybody very kind of isolated for some reason. One day out of the blue, Frank suddenly disappeared, and this strange Irish woman came on board and started harassing me every day with phone calls, saying, what the feck are you doing? And if I can get on with this and if I can do that. And we went down to Leeds. Myself, I met Ruth in Leeds, Hull, sorry. And at that stage, Steve had come on board as well. And things just from that just seemed to rocket for me. I was convinced to give up my kind of kitchen job, which was a bit difficult to do for me, and came on board fully with Payment Sense. And literally within a couple of months, I was working as a coach. I was in Champions League. And then I think about maybe just over a year ago, I became a concession, just for concessions were still running. So I went from doing a very quick part-time odd sale a week. And I think with Payment Sense, the rule is that you get out of it what you put into it. And that certainly applied to me, because the more I started putting in effort and time, the more Payment Sense seemed to come back to me with support and help, etc. For the last maybe 6 months, 8 months or so, since I became a concession, I've been in the Champions League and Platinum more or less permanently. So for me, it was when I went from a very, I'm not sure if I want to do this, commit myself to full time, and now that I've done it, I can't believe I didn't do it like 5 years ago whenever I started. So for me, it's been very important, the support and help that I got from Payment Sense. In the area that I live in, I can drive 400 or 500 miles in a day just to go and see a customer. So it's my work is slightly different from a lot of other people's. I don't see a lot of merchants in the week, so I have to be sure that the ones that I see are going to sign and do a good deal. So that changes your pitch very slightly. So that basically that's it. I've come from a tentative start to, as I say, wishing I'd been doing this 5 years ago and that I'd committed fully then. And as I say, Payment Sense for me, the more I do for it, the more they seem to do for me back. That's
okay, good man, Andy. Thanks for that, Andy. So how's things going for you at the minute? Obviously with lockdown and stuff, how are you doing business at the minute?
Okay, well, I have a list of all the customers that are my customers that are still trading. And basically I'm just chasing them to see about Moto and Ecom. I've been doing a lot of Moto. I signed a new chip and pin a couple of days ago, and I've had a request for a chip and pin this morning as well. So I phoned them and they're wanting to go and sign up as well. I'm finding that because of the area that we're in, you become known. It's a small geographical area in terms of Aberdeen or Inverness or the Fort William, the towns that I tend to visit. So once one merchant has got you, your name becomes known. So, and as long as you look after them and you do the work for them and make sure they're well supported and provided for, they always seem to generate work for me. So I'm doing a bit of phoning. I'm not canvassing, I'm not doing anything like that in terms of going out of the house, but just phoning merchants saying, how you doing? Are you okay? Do you need any help or anything? And for example, this morning, I phoned the fish and chip shop and they said, well, actually, we're getting a lot of people phoning in now. Is there anything you can do with that? So it's another motto to sign up. So it seems to be like a motto a day, seems to be that keeps the financial.
Super, and that's what we're looking for. That's what gets people to platinum. Whenever you get yourself into a habit of doing a deal a day, then before you know it, you're a real solid Champions League platinum level seller. So yeah, well done that. So we'll move on to for John to do his introduction with us. Jonathan's exciting to have on today because he is one of our top experts from the field in the e-com side of things. Over the last kind of session, we've been talking about Moto, and everybody now should have done their in-depth e-com and Moto training with Kieran. So Jonathan's going to tell us a little bit about his Payment Sense journey. But the big thing about Jonathan's experience is he really knows the e-com side of the business inside out. So guys, let's get some questions coming in now. We all know that, e-com and loads of different things, different sides of it, and that we all need to learn from. So if we can get some questions coming in, and Jonathan, if you could just tell us your Payment Sense journey to date.
Yeah, so I've been with Payment Sense about 8 or 9 years now. I started off at the head office in London under the telesales team. So in that team, originally it was outbound, and then that changed to inbound. And later on it became more of handling Connect. A lot of Connect partners would give that team leads. So you'd get all the inbound calls through the website, and you could be dealing with anything from a Connect partner to e-commerce to Moto. So I've got quite a lot of experience with anything that can happen, and all combinations of deals to do with Moto, e-com, and you name it. I actually was fortunate enough to moved to Iceland for a couple of years, and I didn't want to leave Payment Sense. So Steve Jason, who's very accommodating, who was my manager at the time, said, yeah, sure, you go and work over there. So took my headset, took my laptop, carried on exactly what I was doing in their head office in London, and worked over there for a couple of years. And then I came back and to be with my family over here, and for personal reasons, and carried on doing that. Then some certain changes led to me becoming more of a field seller as of June, July last year, and I moved to Manchester, and I've been doing that. But primarily, I still like to work a lot on the phone. So when this whole situation with you know, that we're in the minute with COVID came around, I was like, well, I'm actually quite familiar with being on the phone and being in my home office and working like that. So I've just been going around at these times, calling all my customers who are maybe in the industries of like takeaways and stuff, pitching the bike back service, explaining that we can do the e-commerce with that. If some people are using, because a lot of businesses are using their card machines to do a lot of over the phone transactions, just explaining that that's not the most you know, cost effective or secure way of doing things, and telling them that they really need to be using a Moto or something like that instead, and really also getting across that, you know, we've reacted to actually help businesses out. I think it's really important to get that across, rather than just, you know, just pitching cold, just saying like we're offering these free services to you, you know, with no contract, you know. So it really really helping businesses out. And I think if you call up your, well, like I have been calling up my existing pipeline of businesses, that they've found that quite helpful, and you know, also asking them if they know any other businesses we can help out too, you know, just getting referrals in with the same kind of thing. So yeah, that's a bit about me and what I've been doing.
Okay, excellent. So would the majority of your business, Jonathan, come from over the phone sales rather than out cold calling and door to door?
Well, going, I always try and prospect over the phone if I can. But like if I'm on an appointment, because I'm in Champions League and I get appointments through, if I'm on an appointment, I will cold call around my appointments. But I mean, when you are face to face with somebody and they've got that rapport with you, obviously a lot of the time it's easier to get them to get the documents out and do things like that. Sometimes getting documents over the phone can via email and stuff can be a bit tricky, but as I'm doing this at home, a lot of people will send documents via WhatsApp, you know, and I think a lot of the time when you need somebody to send you something, if you just ask them to send it now while you're on the phone, like you would tell them to get it now while you're there when you're with them. You know, I found that people are pretty responsive at getting me stuff quite quick, even though I'm not out and about. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And just off the back, would you, you know, would you kind of do your prospecting for yourself outside of the appointments all over the telephone? And if so, what way would you lead in that? What advice could you give the guys for, you know, for those that want to try the telephone approach?
So something that's been working for me is if you've got any existing customers that you've saved quite a bit of money for, and you can call businesses that you know that are going to be open, like convenience stores, and just say, hey, I've been speaking to blah, blah from blah, blah, who they know in their area, and we saved them X amount. You know, if they've got a card machine, you know, we can still do chip and pin deals for them, and hopefully, you know, when calling those convenience stores or whatever around businesses that you have supported, because you're giving some frame of reference that they know in their area, they're more likely to speak to you. And often on the phone, actually, especially during this time, you've got a bit of rapport, like, you know, you understand people's situations that they're in and the hardships that they're dealing with, and people who are having to work from home, you know, so it gives you something really to talk about. It's not like people are just you know, everyone's kind of in this thing together. So I just kind of go in that angle, asking people how they are at this time. But generally, I will call, at the moment, I'm calling a lot of my existing merchants, you know, just going through deals I've done in the past. But I would say, yeah, if you know people you've helped and you can call around that area, that would get you more leeway than just going in cold.
Okay, super, mate. Thanks for that. Okay, so we'll go over to Susanna and get some questions from.
Hi guys, yeah, we've had a couple of questions come through, but if you want to keep them coming through. So first question is, if companies have small web companies dealing with their shopping carts, how straightforward is it to deal with them? I don't know, Jonathan, do you want to answer this around the e-commerce?
Okay, so if a business that if I understand this right, if a business that you're talking to has got a web company dealing with their shopping cart, how straightforward? Well, you wouldn't really need to deal with them directly. The important thing is finding out who the shopping cart is with right at the point when you're discussing e-commerce. And we have a list that I'm sure you might have seen, but I'm sure that can get out to you, of all the shopping carts, compatible web shop builders and booking systems and accounts packages that our e-commerce solution will integrate with. And if you find out, you know, that that's who we integrate with, then you don't really need to speak with those companies. You only need to speak with the customer and say to the customer, we will give you everything you need to get your e-commerce linked in, to give to your, we will give you everything you need to give to your web developer. So on our website, on paymentsense.com, there is a section, if you scroll right to the bottom, called Developer Zone. It's under the support, it's right at the bottom of the very page. And if you click that, it goes to developers.paymentsense.com. That has all the cart plugins, resources, FAQs, and how-to guides that a web developer will ever need. Now, when the customer is credit approved, the day after they're credit approved, they will get a gateway email, and that can be forwarded to the web developer. So I always tell my customer, you can forward that email to your web developer and you can give them access to the developer zone. And when you get the customer live in the e-commerce system, you have to create a password within it. The web developer also needs that. So when I've told the customer to give their web developer the access to the developer zone, which is on our website, and the email that they receive telling them it's ready, and and the password that they've created within Mothership, then I don't hear anything more about it. The web developer can get on and link that website up. Obviously with the our bite back team do that integration for the merchants, so we don't really need to worry too much about that, but that should help you. You don't really need to speak to developers. I will do everything in my power never to speak to a developer or a web company. There's no need. You only need to speak to the customer.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We've got a question from Stuart. This one's to Jonathan. What's your pitch approach to a potential new customer for e-commerce and Moto under the current situation that we're in, and also obviously before lockdown? So instead of thinking of your backbook customers, so the ones that you sold chip and pin to, what about brand new customers? How do you approach them?
So I would ask that customer, You know, if they're using their card machine, how much of the time are they using that card machine for over the phone payments? If that is anything over 10%, then it's going to be cheaper for them to have a virtual terminal, because we charge an additional 50p on every debit card. So that's a 40p difference between the extra 10p on the Moto. So I say every 3 customers, that's costing you £1. In exchange for paying a tenner a month, which is the cost of the Moto system, you know, they can have a virtual terminal that's more secure, that'll cost them less, and has full transaction reporting. It's all without a contract. It's easier to use. You can have multiple users. So I'll just go down that route. And I also say that I've known, and this is true, I've known other competitors like WorldPay who've shut down their merchants' card machines because of the high value of transactions that they've been doing over the phone. Because Visa and MasterCard prefer you to have a Moto rather than using the card machine. Card machines are only designed for very few transactions. Anything over 10%, they really need to be using a virtual terminal. And with the e-commerce, just say, you know, people around the clock can go on their website and order, you know, especially if they're having to, if you've called the business up and they're saying they're closed, say we've got the buy back service, we'll build you a website for free. We've got social media marketing guide to promote your business. We've got a free order management system. It's all free. You know, you're not paying for a web developer. You're not paying for hosting. You're not paying for a domain name. You're not paying for the ongoing upkeep of the website. Some of that stuff will cost businesses hundreds of pounds. We're doing it all free, and we give them, the only thing they have to pay is a tenner a month at least to you know, get the e-commerce linked into that, and we'll set it all up for them. So I think those are the 2 roads that go down for e-commerce Moto.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Andrew, I'll come to you with this one. Do you always charge a gateway fee, or your existing merchants, do you sometimes do it free, or do you generally always charge a fee?
Most of the time I probably offer Moto for free. But obviously only if they have chip and pin with us. Again, you have to look at what they're saving and pitch it that way. So it's always about cost. So you can offset the 10 quid a month, as Jonathan said, against what they're going to save. And if you look at a statement, it's usually fairly easy to calculate what they're going to save by using a Moto account. So it's all maths at the end of the day. So depending on the merchant situation and how much Moto they're going to be doing, if it's not a lot of Moto, then you would probably offer it for free. But if they are going to be doing a lot of Moto, then that becomes a major account for the paying for.
Okay, perfect. We got a question here from Nicholas Gold. If you do a pre-authorization on our MMS platform, how do you complete the sale? So for an example, if a pre-authorization is taken for £100, however, the final bill is only £80, how do we process this through and close it off? Do either of you guys know that?
I'm a little bit rusty on it, but I believe it's something to do with the transaction reporting section. You would recall that transaction in order to close it.
Okay.
But in that case, is that how it's done? Yeah, okay. But I would say, if you feel that you're running out of your depth with the deeper technicalities of Moto, just give them customer services number and say they can reach that round the clock if they have got any further questions, and then that'll free up more of your own time with the technicalities if it's a bit out of your depth. That's generally what I try to do. But having said that, there was an MMS webinar the other day from Kieran, which is so in depth, and I learned stuff that I didn't know, and I've been doing this forever from that webinar. So get yourself that, take the time to watch it. It'll really benefit you when selling this product.
Fantastic, thank you. A question from Freddie. I'm looking at helping an existing chip and pin customer with an e-commerce and a Moto account. They have Sage Pay accountancy and want to be able to reconcile payments easily. Sage Pay is a competitor to our MMS gateway and is a separate company to Sage accountancy software. What's your experience with Sage using our own Ecom and Moto MMS offering? Or do you just offer a mid only, or do you do a gateway as well?
You can do both. We are compatible with Sage, so you can provide a merchant account. You would do it as like a free Moto Ecom or free Ecom without the gateway part. Not a great deal of money for the effort you will put in as well, comparatively, than selling them a gateway. And if you do sell our gateway as well, you can, obviously they can send pay by links and take payments over the phone. But you can send the merchant ID number, which will be ready on credit approved. You know, you don't have to wait for it to do anything, and give that to them to give to Sage, and ask the merchant to get in touch with Sage, tell them to set it up, and ask them to process a real transaction, not a test transaction, a real transaction through that merchant account in order to get it live. But I've had a lot of customers who've had expensive bills by using Sage. So wherever possible, you want to run through their bill, show them how much they'll save from getting away from Sage, and try and offer them our platform. So there's two ways of doing things. I'd say if you can avoid having them to have a merchant ID with Sage, it would bring you more money and save you less hassle. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Andrew, I'll come to you with this one. If a merchant has an Ecom account and a Moto account, do they have to have a second Moto for reoccurring payments, or can they just do that through the existing Moto?
So, I'll leave that with you, Andrew. Or is it me or Andrew?
We'll go to Andrew with this one.
All right.
As far as I'm aware, if you have a Moto account and you're processing normal transactions, you need a second mid if you're doing recurring transactions.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm aware, you need two mids, so it's two applications.
Yeah. And same with e-commerce as well. Even if they have a Moto and they're doing reoccurring Moto and they have e-commerce, they can have reoccurring e-commerce as well. Now, you can do e-commerce and take payments over the phone through e-commerce, but technically to the letter, if they're doing over 10% of their e-commerce over the phone transactions, they're supposed to have a Moto merchant account as well, which would get you more money if you did sell that. That's old school. That's how it's supposed to work. But yeah.
So you got the two mids, one for Moto, one for reoccurring Moto, one for Ecom, and one for reoccurring Ecom. So actually, it could end up as 4 mids.
That's it.
Yeah.
And just to complicate things further, you could have all of them in each currency. So I once did a 12 Moto, but they probably don't want you to do that because there's a bit of churn.
No, because of course you've got euros, dollars, and then the sterling, so you can have 3 mids per Moto.
Yeah, there's options there for you.
Okay, we've got another question. This one's from Gordon. Jonathan, what would you say are the USPs or what makes our e-commerce better? So, what are our USPs? Do you maybe just have 3 points, for example? Why do you think that Payment Sense's e-com is better than what's on the market out there, and how you sell that?
I've always said, because this was true when I started, that our e-commerce has had no downtime. Now, I don't know whether that's still true, but it's something I say. We've had no downtime. But obviously, if they're with us for their card machines, they'd have everything all in one place. They have our support. We've got the best, among the best online reviews on Trustpilot. You have to be a real customer to leave a review on Trustpilot, and we've got among the best reviews. It's relatively easy to set up. You've got someone on hand, your account manager, to help them with it. But yeah, that's as far as I think I can go with USPs. It's really easy.
Okay.
It's quite simple.
Yeah. I tend to go into moto from the base of having sold them chip and pin. And again, it's about having one company dealing with all their financial transactions in that sense. So it just makes more sense for them to have one company doing their chip and pin and their moto, and obviously. And remember, at some stage you have to cancel their existing switcher. And it gets complicated if you're cancelling their chip and pin but leaving the e-commerce or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's hard to do it all in one package.
And further to that, we have no real contract or cancellation fees that they would need to get out of if it all went wrong or if their circumstances change. So little commitment.
Yeah, the 3 months is big thing.
Lovely. And I'll put this to both of you. Do either of you make contact with web designers to try and recommend you? So do you work referrals through web developers at all? Do you work with any web developers, either of you?
I have done over the years. Some come and go. At the moment, no. I've been rather busy at the moment to pursue it, but it is something that I do. I mentioned it is a good line of pursuit because web developers will have, loads of customers who, will need our services. So yeah, it'd be good to create a partnership with them for sure.
Perfect. Yourself, Andrew?
I'm basically too busy. I'm spending so much time dealing with the businesses coming in. I really struggle to start chasing things, to be honest.
Fair enough. It's nice to be too busy to be in that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, let me just have a quick look through and see what other questions that we've got coming through. A question from Kirsty. How would you suggest a field seller organise their prospecting of an area over the phone if they don't have an existing customer base? So, Kirsty, maybe a new starter, maybe somebody that hasn't got a back book of customers. Have either of you got any advice for her as to how to, really start cold calling and starting to get some e-commerce and moto business in this current situation? If we go to Andy first, and then we'll come across to you, Jonathan.
God, I don't know. I started by selling chip and pin, and that meant you got out on the street and knocked on doors and spoke to people. And the e-commerce and moto then develops on that because you sold them the chip and pin. So the moto is going to follow on as a natural progress. So I would guess just now it's very difficult if you're a new start. I haven't done vast amount of phone prospecting for new customers for moto, so I'm kind of at a loss for that one, I'm afraid.
What I would say is Mothership is a really powerful tool. So you can actually, on the search bar, search by live merchants, and you could just check in with those live merchants and ask them how they're doing. Just open one up, take ownership of it, give them a call. You can search by postcode. So you could search for live merchants in your postcode and say, hey, I'm local. I'm your local rep for, because some of these people might have been set up by telesales and then left alone. You could introduce yourself as being that you want to be their local account manager, and you've been assigned to them to find out how stuff's going. And they might tell you, yeah, we're doing a lot of payments over the phone through our card machine now. So then you can go in for a moto, or you could check in and they might, you might find out that they're in need of a website, because or they're closed currently, and you could suggest we could set up a website and help you promote. So I would just use what's on Mothership, the live merchants that are out there, and build around them. Or if you can see that we've done maybe something like Connect, you could call businesses down the road from them and say, hey, we've got a customer next door to you, who we've helped out. We could help you out too with whatever. And it just it's all about creating some frame of reference with something that they already know, so that you're not going in cold.
Yeah, my busiest motos at the moment are small supermarkets, fish and chip shops, and butchers, and some bakers. So I guess if you're targeting types of businesses, maybe through Yellow Pages and things as well, Mothership obviously, But Yellow Pages and stuff like that, Yell.com will give you all the local butchers in the area, all the local supermarkets or whatever, and they are still trading and still busy, and most of them are taking a lot of orders over the phone now.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Tell you also is good. I've got a lot of fish and chip shops, but also dentists actually. Dentists are still trading. They still have card machines. You can get them out of their contract and save them some money, offer integration between, you know, if they've got some software that we're compatible with, you know,
Okay.
help dentists.
Dentists, brilliant.
Yes.
I'm sorry, dentists are good.
And there's a question here from Eleanor. How, with Pay by Link, which is something we actually haven't spoken about yet, which might be good to give an overview of Pay by Link. Does the Pay by Link have to be always sent by email, or can it actually be sent as a text message?
I think it's only you're given the option of email the most thing. You have to select Pay by Link and say what kind of payment you're taking. Can't remember, it's e-commerce and another two, and you have to put in the customer's email address. So as far as I'm aware, it's email only. Okay,
maybe we can email it and then copy the link and send it in a text. I'm just thinking of ways around it. I can't see why that wouldn't work. So that's one thing. Jonathan, do you want to go over what Pay by Link is? Because maybe some of the guys don't know about it.
Yeah, Pay by Link exists in a Moto when you set up a Moto gateway, and it also exists when you set up an e-commerce gateway. It's just another section within Mothership that you choose Pay by Link, and when you select Pay by Link, you have the option to put in an amount that the customer would like to pay, their email address, you press send, and then the customer will fill in their card details with a payment page at their email, press submit, and then both parties get notified instantly that it's been authorized and that they've paid. And it's especially good for people who are a bit funny about maybe giving their card details over the phone, or somebody maybe they're like deaf, you know, or whatever, any kind of circumstance where somebody, okay, it's good for accountants as well, because you know, they can just send a link and someone pay easily by their business card or whatever.
There's also an issue with chargeback. If you've done a Pay by Link and the customer has then taken that link and entered their card details and paid the amount, it's harder for them then later to take a chargeback, because there's more evidence that in actual fact they participated in making the payment rather than the merchant.
Yeah, brilliant. Because it's more of an e-commerce, they're actually putting their card details in, as within a Moto is the merchant taking the card details, and e-commerce, which is the Pay by Link, is they're putting their own card details in, so they've got less grounds to be able to have a chargeback.
Worth mentioning as well on that, there is an option within the settings, the account settings of the merchant management system, that allows you to send automatically the customer an email receipt upon taking an email address, which is also, like, because a lot of merchants are worried about chargebacks, that's also another surefire way of preventing or reducing chargebacks by the customer getting a proper receipt.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got a question from Graham. Are we compatible with Xero yet? I believe not. Xero is an accountancy solution. We're not compatible with them yet, but it is something that we will look to further down the line, no doubt. We've got a question from Dom as well. This is around, guys, assuming you're not charging the monthly amount for Moto, do you actually pitch it as free or just the monthly PCI charge of $4.95?
I would pitch it as free because the system is free. You know, the system is free. But personally, I know Andrew doesn't. I always sell the gateway price wherever possible. It's very rarely that I do a mid only personally. But yeah, you have that option.
Okay, thank you. There's a question here from Andrew, and I'll just cover this one off. Can you clarify what specific cards attract non-qualifying fees? If there's any card, whether it be debit or credit, it doesn't matter. Any card that is coming over the phone as a card holder not present, it will mean that they get that 0.5% for credit and 50p for debit. So every single type of card, doesn't matter what it is, if it's done over the phone, they will get those higher fees, which is where the Moto really comes into itself. Let's have another look. What other questions?
Can I say something about government charges on Moto? Some people think that if they process a card, a transaction on Moto, and they don't put in the address of the CV2, it will become a non-secure transaction and they'll be charged the higher rates. In fact, that's not the case. It still goes through at the Moto rate. The only time it's charged at a higher rate is if it's an international card and they don't have the full details.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got another question from Amos, which we spoke about earlier, actually. What have you found to be the quickest and best way to get a Moto and Ecom live, and how to get that penny transaction for it? Jonathan, if we come to you first, and then we'll go over to Andy and see whether you do something slightly.
Okay, so I'll just run through the process of what I do with a customer from start to finish, because it might make it clearer. So when I send a customer a document out, at the same time, they will get an email asking them to confirm their email address. And I always go into that email and ask them to click the link in the email to confirm their email address. They will then get 2 more emails. One's a gateway email, which is more for their web developer. I'd say they don't really need to focus on that too much. It's just for if they want to test the system out. But then there's an email called new user account that they get. And that has a username, a password, and a link to the merchant management system in it. Now, some people's emails are set up to ignore links, so they would need to copy the text of that link into a browser. But normally they just click the link, they put the username and the password in. The username includes the full word merchant, and they put that username and password in, and it prompts them to change the password to something they remember. Now, it needs to have uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and symbols like an exclamation mark. So I normally prompt something like Apple with a capital A, 21, and an exclamation mark to make it easier for them to know what it is that they're selecting for this password. They put that in, and then the password changes, and that asks them, it's important to make a note of that link, make a note of that username and password that they've just created, because they'll need it when they're approved, because we do a transaction together. I get that in their mind even before they've signed the application. So then you come back to them when it's been credit approved, and you tell them it's been credit approved. Tomorrow, now normally the science is, if it's approved early, they should be ready about 1 o'clock. If it's approved late, it should be about 5 o'clock the following day. And I say, I'm going to be calling, you should get an email around about that time called about a gateway. And I say, give me a call when you get that email, because we'll know it's ready. Otherwise, I'll give you a call there after 1 or there after 5. And we're going to do a transaction together so that you know the account's working well, and it's for bank, I say it's for security as well, whatever that means. Anyway, I go and I call them up and I say, have you got those login details that that I've asked you to remember and write down? And hopefully they say yes. Otherwise, you're going to be hunting for that new user account, resetting their password, that kind of stuff. So make sure that they've got a note of that. Get them in the mothership. Then what happens is, if it's an e-com, they'll agree to terms and conditions when they go into the merchant management system. And then they'll be taken to a section called Gateway Account Admin. If it's an e-com, they need to create a password that they're going to give to their web developer. So it doesn't need symbols, it just needs uppercase, lowercase, and numbers. And then they put that in and press change password. And that's what they'll give to their web developer. The web developer will use that password in the back end of their system so that the e-commerce and their system can speak together. If it's a Moto, however, they still need to do this bit. They just press change password, even though they haven't put a password in, and that'll get rid of that bit that they need to do. Then the final thing they need to do is go to the payment section up on the top and choose transaction by card details. And their account should be there. They need to fill in the payment page with anything that's highlighted in with a red asterisk with their card details. And this is, when we say we do a test transaction, we're actually doing a real transaction with a real credit or debit card. Fill in that payment page with the card details and the CV2 number. So it has to be anything with a red asterisk and the CV2 number. Press submit, and it should say approved, all being well. If there's something wrong and it gives you some weird messages, that's the time to message the MMS support email address. And then Priyanka in MMS support, she can go and contact those who need to be contacted to fix any issues there might be. But 9 times out of 10, it'll be an approved transaction. All you then need to do is drop the locator ID or the opportunity ID in an email to sales support, and they will update the account to live. They don't need a screenshot or anything. It'll just, because they've got back-end access to the merchant management system.
Perfect. Thank you very much. It does sound quite complicated, but if you do go through it step by step, how Jonathan just explained there, it is quite simple to do. Andy, we'll come to you with this one. Is the pay by link automatically put in the Moto and e-commerce, or is it something that you have to request?
It's automatically. It's under the payments tab. So you can do payments, pay by card, payments, pay by link. It's just there. It's set up and ready to use as soon as the account's live. There's nothing special to do for it.
Perfect. So it's just automatically enrolled into it. Hamid's got a question here. Do normally merchants have to pay any cancellation fees to their current gateway provider in order to switch to our e-commerce? So the same way you'd have cancellation fees with Chip and Pin, do you have cancellation fees generally in your experience around e-commerce?
If you're coming out of contract, yes, contractors. It'll vary. You know, with us, we have to 3 months. At the end of 3 months, they can walk away. So this would apply to any other e-com.
And just to expand on that, who would you say, Andy, our biggest competitors are against Payment Sense within the e-commerce market? Who do you come up against the most?
Obviously, WorldPay is a big one.
WorldPay, yeah. Jonathan, would you be the same? Probably WorldPay?
Yeah, I'd say so, WorldPay. And
what are their weaknesses? Why are we better?
They're WorldPay.
Because we are.
It's often down to cost, and I always mention customer feedback as well. If you look at their reviews online compared with ours on Trustpilot, we come off a lot better. Perfect.
Okay. All right. One last question, and then we'll get wrapped up and let you guys go. Can we email ecom support to enable pay by link on a live account on behalf of a merchant, or do they have to email the request themselves? I think it's probably already on there. We probably just need to let them know how to enable them to do pay by link. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. I think that's kind of come to the end of our questions. And thank you ever so much for your time. It's been really insightful, and I've learned some things along the way as well. Definitely. We've got our next Pitch Perfect next Tuesday at 3 o'clock, because we're Thursday today. I'm losing track of days. Next Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, Davey, at all?
Hi guys, just again, Jonathan and Andy, great session, guys. Very, very informative. And as Susanna says, I have a sheet full of notes here of things that I've been picking up today from you. So really, really well done. And I think, guys, for everybody, the great thing, I'm super excited about this week because we've done the Make More Sales process with Kieran on the e-com and Moto. And then we've done these Pitch Perfect calls, which has been concentrated on e-com and Moto all week. So, we really do have a massive opportunity, guys. We all should now be fully fueled, fully trained up and have a lot more knowledge than we had at the start of the week. If anybody missed Kieran's calls, please make sure you speak to your RSM, get the recording of them, because they were, honestly, top-notch training. So get onto them. And as Susanna says, our next call is next Tuesday at 3 p.m. And again, guys, separate topic, but it's going to be an exciting one on how to maximize your LCR. So basically, how to maximize your money, which is why we're all here. So stay safe over the weekend, have a great time, and we look forward to speaking to you all again on Tuesday. Thanks a million, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks ever so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.